What's up, everyone? Julian seems to be pulling some strings. We got Leanne looking for answers and more about Leanne's faith. All that coming up and more in just one quick second.
I'm Maria Menounos, and you're tuned in to AfterBuzz TV, the ESPN of TV talk. Now, let the buzz begin.
What's going on? So thrilled to have you here. We're excited to talk about this episode. It's episode 5 of Servant Cricket. I'm your host, Brandon Hanna. We're on AfterBuzz TV, and let me introduce my amazing co-host, Mr. James Maple.
Hey guys, how you doing? James Maple here, lover of all things horror, and a connoisseur of fine food, I might add.
Yes, and we're going to get into that. We're going to get into a lot of things. Again, Julian's pulling some strings behind the scenes. We got Leanne looking for some answers and more about her faith, some really interesting tidbits. And of course, we got a special segment today, Bizarre Foods, which I cannot wait to get into.
Yep.
It's going to be great. But let's start off with our overall thoughts.
Yeah. This episode was not my favorite, to be honest with you. It was a little slow, but we learned a lot about Leanne. A lot about Leanne. So sometimes you gotta take the good and the bad. Though this wasn't my favorite episode, I did learn a lot about Leanne's faith, as you mentioned a moment ago. And I think this is gonna lead us down the path of understanding a bit more of her psyche. So I'm hoping that we get more answers as we move forward with this episode as the crutch here.
Yeah, this definitely felt like a filler episode, but it was it was a lot of information.
Yeah,
you know?
That's a better way to put it. It's
Yeah,
an information-driven episode.
It was a necessary episode.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's like so much going on here. Like I don't even know where to begin. I mean, let's start with the title of the episode, Cricket. I mean, we have these crickets. There's crickets all over the house.
Yeah. So this was really pretty interesting. I mean, this kind of goes into like, Sean's being a chef and him always having these strange foods in the house. So we kind of open and see Toby in the cellar prepping for Sean, and Leanne comes downstairs and she sees him opening that styrofoam box, and it is full of crickets, and your boy don't like bugs, so I was squirming a little bit in my seat, to be honest with you.
Yeah, definitely. Same. I mean, like, I'm kind of intrigued. Yeah. I might try crickets one day.
Oh,
but like,
heck no.
I don't know.
No.
I don't know. We'll see. But I do want to talk about something that we unbelievably haven't touched on yet, and that is how Dorothy just kind of stares blankly into space at times.
Yeah.
Like, what is going on there?
Yeah, so
she's possessed or something.
I'm not too sure. I don't know if she's like, at the first time it happened, I want to say it was in the second episode or maybe the first. There was an instance where she was standing in the fridge, and then the husband walks in, Sean walks in, and he sees her and he calls her name and she doesn't react. She's literally, the fridge is open and she's just like like with a blank stare. And her brother Julian walks in and tries to like bring her out of it, which leads me to believe that he may have seen her do that before, perhaps when they were children, because Sean appeared to be kind of like shocked by it, but Julian seemed to be like, okay, let me just get her out of this real quick. And then there was another incident in the cab where she was being dropped off. First off, I don't know why she never drives. Does she not own a car? She seems to be pretty wealthy, but she doesn't drive anywhere. But she's sitting in the cab, and the cab driver's like, okay,
like, get out,
please. And she finally snaps out. And then we have another instance in this episode. So I'm not too sure what is going on with the whole blank staring thing. I don't know if she's like deep in thought about, Jericho or her fertility issues or what, but it's becoming a recurring thing for her to have these like blank, I don't want to say outbursts. Inburst, is that a word?
I like inburst.
Inburst works. She has these blank inbursts.
But I do love the lead up to that inburst in this episode, where again we get one of those like very quick, very like sweet like husband wife moments, and like kind of like Leanne almost being the daughter again, where he's like, why don't you go upstairs and kick her in the ass for me? Like, we're running late, we got somewhere to be.
How crazy is that? Yeah, and again, we said in the last episode, it is really nice and really refreshing to see those moments, because it's such a tense topic sometimes, talking about infertility and having these reborn babies as coping mechanisms. So it is nice to every now and again have like a joking, like, okay, finally we can breathe. We can have a quick laugh. Now back to being crazy.
Yeah, exactly. And that kind of like, let's get into the meat of this episode. Yeah. Like, Julian's pulling some strings behind the scenes, trying to get rid of Leanne.
Man. Julian is a master puppet master. Like,
it seems to be
doing the damn thing behind the scenes. So one of the first instances that we've noticed of Julian pulling the strings is the private investigator Roscoe. he is having some like snooping action going on in and around the house that I thought was pretty interesting.
Yeah, he's breaking into the house and he's snooping around. We don't necessarily realize it's him at first, but it is later revealed that it is in fact him, and he knows the alarm code to the house.
Yeah.
Obviously, if he's working for Julian would obviously know the alarm code talking to Sean.
Right.
Like they're all in on it together.
Yeah.
And it's it seems interesting where like we see Sean kind of warming up to Leanne a little bit.
Yeah.
But he's still like very heavily spying on her.
Oh, for sure.
And trying to figure out like what's going on, trying to get rid of her.
Yeah. So. One of the second ones is we have kind of 4 ways that he's been doing this. Julian's been the puppet master. The second one is my personal favorite. I was a mischievous child, and I would do something like this. He's swapping. So before we go that far, if you guys have noticed that Leanne eats nothing but Campbell's tomato soup.
Yeah, I knew she loved soup, but it wasn't until this episode that I realized it was just Campbell's tomato soup.
Just Campbell's tomatoes. And, like, real talk, that's not even that good a soup. Like, get some Progresso, like, something good. Like,
something
something not condensed.
Yeah.
So she's eating this condensed tomato soup, Campbell's tomato soup, as we said. And Julian, it appears, has gone through and swapped out the labels with dog food. So Miss Leanne goes to make some soup, and she dumps it out into the pan, and it's like extra, like
it's like coagulated and thick and like one big clump.
Yeah. So she has this like light bulb that goes off. And it's like, what the heck? So she goes to dump it into the trash, and she sees dog food labels there. So it's obviously that the two have been swapped out, and someone's trying to like get at her. So
yeah, and for me that was another great example of the misdirection of this show, where like the moment you start to think something might actually be supernatural, it's like nope, it was just the old switcheroo, like changed it out for dog food.
Yep.
It's like you thought maybe it was something weird. It's like it's just Julian messing with her.
The third way we realize that Julian has been puppet mastering around the house is it's kind of a subtle way, but it definitely would work in terms of like ushering someone out the house. He's been altering the heating and cooling in Leanne's room in particular to kind of make her like leave or I guess just leave really by making it incredibly hot in her room or incredibly cold in her room. A very subtle thing, but it's something we picked up on him being a puppet master. But I think the last one is definitely the most interesting one that he's been like pulling the strings.
Yeah, so like I mean like Leanne like listens in on this conversation where she finds out they've been messing with the heat, so she like puts duct tape over the vents too.
Yeah.
But then Leanne has some visitors in this episode.
So yeah, if you notice, she's walking Jericho down the street, and we see her make eye contact with a young woman and an even younger child. Like she looks to be like 10 or so years old. And we didn't really think anything of it, except we realized that the girl, her name is Wanda, and the younger girl's name is Olivia. They end up befriending our girl Leanne.
Yeah, they notice the stroller outside, and that's kind of their way in. They give her a hard time about it, like you don't know, like someone could steal this or whatever, and that was their way in. And then it's interesting to see Leanne try to form this friendship,
right?
Like almost immediately, like we have Toby in the house, and he comes upstairs to like let Leanne know that he's leaving, and she's already over him.
Yeah,
she's like, I've got some new friends now. Right. Like you can just leave.
And did you notice too? I know we've been talking about how Leanne is picking up some of Dorothy's little habits. There was a very, very small moment where Toby comes upstairs, like you said a moment ago, and he's like a little shocked because keep in mind Toby has been working for Sean for presumably a pretty long time. So he knows that there's an extra key under the grill. He knows the code to the house. So we can assume that Sean trusts Toby. It's his sous chef. And Toby's downstairs prepping for Sean, and he walks upstairs and sees Leanne, Olivia, and Wanda, two people he has never seen before. So he's like initially freaked out, like, who the heck is this up in this house?
Yeah, like who are you inviting into this home?
Like, you new here. What you inviting people to the house for? So he has, in my opinion, make the right reaction. He's like, yo, like, is everything okay? Like, is everything good here? And you literally see Leanne turn into Dorothy, I feel like, and she's like, everything's okay, you can see yourself out, or something to that effect.
Yeah, because Dorothy is very curt with her earlier in the episode about the whole cake issue, like oh, would you like some cake? Like go down the street and pay for it yourself.
Yeah, it reminded me of this of making the band back in the day. They made the band walk across New York City for some like cheesecake. It was that had that it threw me back, harking back to that, like I'm gonna get you the least way you know I'd expect it, but I'm gonna get you. So yeah, she made her go across town to get cake, and Leanne didn't even Dorothy didn't even eat the cake.
No,
that's messed up. I want some cake.
It is,
Heck.
and it is weird too. I mean, like again, like Leanne doesn't just seem to be picking up Dorothy's habits. Like it's whoever she's around, she like starts to like mirror their behavior a bit. Like the second Wanda was in the house and she started cursing, it's like you see Leanne using the same profanity.
Absolutely, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, and it's like she's ever like learning and adapting like to her environment.
Another thing I thought was a little interesting too was just the dynamic, the subtle dynamic between Wanda and Olivia, because we assume that Wanda is taking care of Olivia like a nanny style, and it was just interesting that she chose like another fellow nanny to kind of befriend, but we end up realizing that this little friend of hers is not quite the friend we thought it would be.
Yeah, it's all a ploy by Julian. Like he paid her to come to the house to check up on her, to spy on her almost.
Take pictures and
take
everything.
pictures, but most importantly, to try to convince her to leave, convincing her of another job.
Yeah.
And that has to be a really difficult moment for Leanne, because I mean we see a lot from Leanne's perspective in this episode, and it kind of makes her more of a sympathetic character, I think.
Yeah.
And you can really feel for her about how like she feels so betrayed in that moment, where she realizes that like the person that she thought was her friend is not really her friend at all.
That's an interesting point. I never really thought about it that way. There is a true, one of the few true vulnerable moments that we've seen of Leanne, where she's hurt, like genuinely hurt, because she thought she was creating another family here in Philadelphia, leaving her family that was presumably dead back in Wisconsin. So seeing her have that like, you're tearing my family apart kind of reaction was like, whoa, like she really has her teeth sunk into this whole like this whole Dorothy and Sean Turner lifestyle. She really thinks that she's part of this family.
Yeah, definitely. And like this is like one of the first times she really like feels threatened by that, and like she obviously is someone who probably doesn't have very many friends.
Yeah, it's
so
obvious.
This is the first time where she like kind of opens herself up a little bit and invites these people into the home.
Yeah.
And then she feels betrayed. And I mean, we definitely want to get into that more, but before we do, I just want to say thank you guys for making us the ESPN of TV talk. I mean, it's because of you that we're able to grow, and we could really use your help continuing to do that. So just make sure you subscribe on YouTube to this channel, all the AfterBuzz TV channels. Give us a good rating on iTunes and leave a comment. Like, tell us, what are your thoughts on this show, on this episode in particular? Do you agree with something that we say? Do you disagree? Like, let us know. I would love to get in the conversation with you, and just thank you for supporting us and helping us do what we love.
Big kisses.
There you go. And so, I mean, I do want to continue that train of thought, because, I mean, so once Leanne finds out, she's looking for answers.
Yeah.
Because, like, she realizes something's wrong when she goes to the house that she presumably thought that Wanda lived at, and she didn't live there.
Yeah.
And so she immediately, like, does a complete 180
She
again.
really does.
To go from this vulnerable person that we think we're starting to like, and then she essentially, I don't know if you want to call it poisons.
Yeah, she did. She like so Olivia, the younger girl, has severe allergies,
which is like a kind of throwaway comment early in the episode, but like, oh, she's allergic to everything. Don't feed her anything.
And Olivia meant what she said, Wanda meant what she said about Olivia, because Olivia is severely allergic to apparently shellfish.
Yes.
And if you remember back to the previous episode where we were making, of all things, I don't know why, lobster ice cream. You heard right. Lobster ice cream.
My favorite reoccurring character on this show, the lobster ice cream, is back.
It's back.
And it's back with a
cameo,
vengeance.
and it came back with vengeance for sure. So we see Leanne make a concerted effort to poison this young girl to get answers. So we were given this greater insight into just how like wackadoo.
She's crazy.
Okay, that's a better phrase. I like that. She's crazy. She cray cray. She cray cray. So we were. I was so shocked by that. Like, I was genuinely taken aback that she would like harm a child. Well, I mean, I guess it's really not shocking given the premise of the show. But but if you notice in that scene, and like the panic of Olivia going through this like anaphylactic shock after eating this ice cream, you see Wanda like freak out and like look for her EpiPen, and in the scene you see it drop right next to Leanne, and in the background you see Wanda like still freaking out looking for the EpiPen for Olivia, and she has this like 5 or 6 seconds, and she's talking to Olivia, talking to Wanda, and she's like, who hired you? Why are you here? Meanwhile, there is a child dying on the floor, and the EpiPen is right next to her, and she's like, give me the answers, and I'll give you the pen, essentially.
Yeah.
And she finally got the answers, and we learned that Wanda was indeed hired from Julian, and this was another effort of Julian, being puppet master, and he hired her to try to convince Leanne to, pack up, ship out.
And it's absolutely crazy to me just how cold of a human being Leanne is in that moment. Like I said, she completely does a 180 from trying so hard to be Wanda's friend.
Yeah.
And then Olivia's just on the ground essentially dying, and Leanne has the EpiPen, and she's just holding on to it until she gets answers.
Yeah. And she's just so nonchalant about it. Like, yeah.
And for someone who cares so much about Jericho's well-being, she doesn't really care for other
She's
children very much at all.
And to second that point, she's a nanny. Like so is Wanda. They're both like, well, we can assume that one is a true nanny. I mean, she's taking care of Olivia, but they're both in the same profession. Like you have to have this like deep love for children, even if it's not your own child. And we see it because she goes back and tries to like hang out with Wanda at their house down the street. So we know she has a love for children. So to see her do that 180 and like, oh, she's dying, you better give me my answers. She's still dying, need my answers. So that was like a definite 180 for the character development for Leanne, I think, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I think for an episode that focused so much on Leanne, I mean, we barely saw any of Dorothy or Sean or even Julian. For an episode that was so centric on her that made her more of a relatable character, it's like I'm more terrified of her now than I ever was.
I'm a little bit scared myself.
It's like it's like we always knew she was capable of some bad things,
but she's crazy.
She's crazy. She's crazy. And so I mean, we do learn. Speaking of learning more about her, this episode, not more visually, really tells us more about her faith.
Right.
And it's interesting. We see her. Obviously, she prays every night.
Right.
And she's always reading her Bible. Mm-hmm. And she seems to be selecting very specific Bible verses and writing names next to them, like assigning one to Dorothy, assigning one to Sean. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was very fascinating. It's kind of hard to tell what the pages actually
what the verses
say.
Were, yeah. If you notice, after the whole cake incident where she sends her to get cake, and then Leanne comes back, and she's walking through the hallway with the cake that she was sent out to get. She hears old Sean and Dorothy doing the nasty. And after that, we cut to the Bible verse. So I don't know if it's like a don't have sex kind of thing or what it was, but it seemed like that kind of provoked her to go straight to the Bible and skim it and find that particular verse and assign Dorothy's name to it.
Yeah, and then even after we see Sean, she spies on Sean scheming with Julian, and then that's when she assigns Sean's name to a specific verse as well. Yeah, and it's weird. It like had me thinking. I was like, is she like doing some weird like Bible voodoo or something?
Because we have that
or is it just like a coping mechanism for her?
Cross as well. Yeah. So we've had a lot of biblical references, and even in the first, maybe the first or second episode, we see Leanne praying, and I think it was Sean walks past the bedroom and sees her, and then goes and does his. I don't know why they do this, like Dorothy in the tub and Sean sitting on the toilet drinking wine as their like private time, but they're talking at that time. They're talking about how religious Leanne is, and Sean is very much like, she can practice her religion, but not in this house. Like, I don't want her to be pushing her Bible verses to me. So we knew that religion was going to play a part in it, but we definitely got a greater sense of how important it was to Leanne herself in this episode.
Yeah, and it makes me go back again to the supernatural elements of things. Like faith and religion is like, it's so heavily involved in Leanne's character, and she's so creepy. It's like such a cliche horror thing to do. It's like there's got to be something.
There's something there.
Greater going on, and then we kind of get another hint of that where Sean has another splinter coming out of his neck.
Yeah, this man is like made of like wood. I'm not understanding. He's like falling apart every episode.
Yeah,
he has some type of physical ailment every single episode. Though the splinters have been far more prevalent, we had them in his throat, we had them in his neck, his butt.
Yeah.
I don't know how I got a splinter in his butt. And then his that whole eye situation from last week's episode. So I'm not too certain what to make of this whole splinter thing, but the splinters in particular have been popping up in the majority of the episodes we've seen thus far.
Yeah, it's very interesting to me. It's like and that was where my head immediately went to when Olivia, was it the
Yeah.
young girl,
Yeah, the young
she
girl.
started choking. And like I was like, oh my god, like is there splinters
In
in
the
her food?
And that's like a genuine question to ask
Yeah.
regarding this show, because that has happened.
And it has happened, and then I was like, oh wait a minute, there was that line about her
Right.
being allergic to everything, like it's lobster ice cream.
Yeah.
And
If you notice too, as we were the few moments that we got to see Dorothy when she's doing the segments in the field, she was talking about makeup and how this specific type of makeup is geared to people with allergens. So I got a sense that allergens were going to be an important part of the show in the very beginning of the episode. I had no idea it was going to take a turn and affect the almost youngest person we've encountered thus far, a child, and she would almost die because of an allergy. So it was hinted at a couple times in this episode that I noticed.
Yeah, that's something I didn't pick up on, so that's really interesting
Yeah.
to me. Like it's just another example of like everything being like layered into this show, like especially with the food stuff.
Yeah.
The food is absolutely crazy. It's so integral to the plot.
Right.
And I kind of want to get into our special segment today,
Heck
bizarre
yeah.
foods. And I mean, do you want to take that away?
So one of the biggest things as you guys know, I work in restaurants and have for quite some time, is talking about bizarre foods. And I wanted to cite one of the craziest experiences I've had regarding bizarre foods. So I worked at this place and I had these two guys come into my restaurant, and they were like, hey, just pick. We want the craziest thing you have on the menu here. And I'm like, okay, sure. Let me go talk to chef. So I go talk to my executive chef, and he tells me to go downstairs to his office. I go downstairs to the office, and outside of his front door is a goat, a skinned goat that is hanging upside down. And he says, James, what's the craziest part of the goat that you want to serve these two guys? The head. So he cuts off the head, as you guys can see here, and he cuts the head down the middle, grills it on both sides, and I walk over to the two guys after about 25 minutes, and I'm like, gentlemen, close your eyes. Are you ready for this? They open their eyes, and this is what's staring at them. Half a goat head. So they take a fork, pluck out the eyes, cheers, and go to town. That's by far one of the most bizarre food experiences I've ever encountered myself. You have anything that's crazy that you've eaten yourself?
That is absolutely insane. I have nowhere near that level. Like the most exotic thing I've ever had is like I've had like some game meat, like some buffalo, some yak, some alligator.
That's pretty out there.
But
still.
I mean, I'd never a head.
No, I haven't had a goat head myself. It's not quite on my top 5, but I'll keep my options open, I guess. So.
Yeah, I mean, and goats are so prolific in horror movies, especially like The Witch.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like, I wonder, like, with all these different bizarre foods we're seeing in this show, like,
I mean, that would
is
be
Sean
crazy.
gonna serve up some goat at some point?
If he does that, I would be very impressed with that. That's pretty out there. So I mean, and it's definitely within the realm of possibility given the bizarre foods we've had thus far. We've had, I mean, lobster's not that crazy, of course, but they had a massive like eel presence in the previous episode. This episode was heavy with crickets. Had no idea you could like infuse crickets with sugar and make them taste like caramel popcorn, but that's a thing. Not a thing for me, but a thing.
I might try it. We'll see.
That's for Brandon, not for James.
But I do love how that was another bonding moment
Yeah.
between Sean and Leanne.
Yeah.
The same where she tried the lobster ice cream previously.
Yeah.
And it's interesting how, like, again, he still can't taste anything.
Yeah. Again, this man is falling apart physically, episode by episode.
Go to the doctor,
Literally,
man.
bro. I'm like, you have insurance. I'm sure you have a very nice house. You have insurance. Go get yourself checked out. You got splinters in your butt. What's going on?
Yeah, and we see the crickets getting loose in the house.
Yeah.
And Leanne eventually captures them all and puts them back in the cooler. And I mean, we saw it was a Roscoe, right? Like he's snooping around the house. Like he had to be the one to
I think so.
to open up the cooler full of the crickets.
Yeah, it had to have been Roscoe or Toby, but Toby had left at that point. So
Yeah.
that's the only person that's been kind of like snooping in and out of the house is Roscoe. So he would be my first suspect.
Yeah, and
if
that
you will.
seemed to really freak Leanne out. Like she seems to have some sort of issue with the crickets.
Yeah.
Like, and then she brought up something about her aunt, like saying like if when you find a cricket in the house, bad things are going to happen.
Right.
And then Sean asks, what kind of bad things, Leanne? And she doesn't say anything.
Which is even scarier.
Yeah. What does that mean? Is there something abnormal going on with these crickets, or is it just all in Leanne's head?
I don't know, man. We think we know something about the show, and they throw us for a loop. So I don't have no idea.
And then once we see her, she seems like Toby eats that cricket.
Yeah.
And she seems very hesitant to do so. Where like, I thought she was going to go ahead and eat the cricket right away, the way she prepared the eel the same way.
Yeah.
But she didn't do that. Like, she kind of gave into the pressure a little bit once Sean asked her. And maybe that goes back to her seeing him as a father figure a bit. Yeah. Where she's like, I don't want to do this, but I'll do it for you.
For dad.
Yeah.
If you will. And, they have been bonding a lot over food recently because they had like we said a moment ago, the instance where she corrected him regarding the chocolate in the lobster ice cream. And this episode, he had her come downstairs and taste the like sugar infused cricket, and she gave him tasting notes on how to improve that. So I don't know if like, obviously food is a huge meta narrative for the entire series, but it's working as more like a true breaking bread between characters, especially characters that you would think would have very little in common, like Leanne and Sean, but they seem to be bonding a strange, like, weird bond, but they're bonding over something, and that something is bizarre foods.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's great to see, but it also catches you off guard a little bit. And then we transition over to the end of the episode where we see like the camera zooming in on Leanne, and it looks like she kept a cricket for herself, like just under a glass upside down. And this has to be some sort of symbolism that I don't understand. I'm very curious to hear your thoughts on it. How we don't see that cricket moving at all.
Right.
And then the cricket comes out, the zooms in, the cricket's out of frame. Leanne starts whipping herself, like punishing herself for eating the cricket. Maybe I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what
if that was like a sin to her to do that.
Well, that goes to her, beliefs on religion.
Yeah.
I don't know if because she witnessed or heard them having sex or whatever, but I feel like she may be internalizing these things, which I think maybe led to her like flogging herself the way she did, because it was pretty aggressive. And she was like putting her weight into it to punish herself for something. But it was never quite revealed in this episode what that something was.
Yeah, and I really thought that we would see scars of like her doing that previously, but her back seemed perfectly fine.
Yeah.
Which tells me like maybe this is the first time that she's had to do this to herself since arriving at Sean and Dorothy's home.
Yeah.
But the camera goes back to a wide shot, and we see the crickets now walking around pretty energetically inside the glass.
Yeah.
And I don't know what that means. Did she like bring the cricket back to life? Why did she keep a cricket for herself?
Yeah, and it's just the one too, because in her bedroom there were everywhere, and she collected them all to put them back into the cooler in the wine cellar downstairs. But she did keep that one that appeared to be dead than alive. So I'm not too sure what symbolism exists there, if any.
To me, maybe it means like she was kind of changing. She's been evolving, right?
Okay.
And she is becoming closer to Sean, becoming closer to Dorothy, and like acclimating to the environment and changing who she is as a person. And her whipping herself is kind of reverting back to the person that she was before she walked in the door in the very first episode. And maybe that cricket now coming back to life, as it looks like.
This man is a philosopher. I'm telling you right now.
I literally just thought of this like 5 minutes ago.
I believe it.
But I find that interesting. Like,
no, yeah.
Like, what if that really means like, okay, this is maybe what Leanne believes is like, I need to go back to my true self, which is this very conservative, religious person. I don't need to be friends with Sean. I don't need to be friends with Dorothy because they're sinners, and I need to go back to my way of life.
Yeah.
I don't really know. I could be way off course here.
I mean, I'm on board. I'm jumping on that ship. That seems pretty convincing to me. So yeah, I think it's a great hypothesis.
I mean, we'll have to see. Like, do you have any predictions for episode 6?
Yeah, for episode 6.
AfterBuzz TV
Let's get these predictions on here. Yeah,
there it is.
Let's. I want to say, I would like to see some more progression for Sean. I think that this episode was Sean light. So I really want to see him grow far more as a character. I'd love to see more of that dynamic between Sean and Dorothy. We were given just a small taste of like their issues with infertility in the previous episode. I really hope that we can delve further into that, because I think that would give us a great understanding of what to expect moving further down in the series itself. So I would really, really like to see and hope that we get a bit more insight into the struggles that they have, because when they are good, and we've pointed it out in the previous episodes, when they're good together as a couple, they're really good. They're funny and witty and cute, and like, we all aspire. They're hashtag couple goals for sure. when they're good. But when they're bad, like
It's bad.
They're bad. So I hope that we get a greater understanding of their dynamics. So when we see them good and when we see them bad, we can understand them greater as characters.
Yeah, I certainly think we're going to see Leanne kind of revert back to her old ways a bit. And I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, I think we're going to see Julian try to take things a step further to get rid of her.
Oh, for sure.
And there might be some more confrontation there, like worse than the whole EpiPen situation.
I mean, we know she's crazy, so we know she's capable of anything. So yeah, good point.
And I definitely do this episode was light on Sean, light on Dorothy. I really wanted to see more of them. As you can see, I'm trying to grow my Sean beard out, so it's a very important character to me. I want to look just like him. I don't want to be just like him. But
Just look like him.
It's got a good look. It's got a good look.
That's good. It's good.
Well, I mean, thank you so much for joining us today. This AfterBuzz TV after show for episode 5 of Servant Cricket. We had a blast talking about it. Hope you had a blast listening to us. Definitely leave some comments down below. We really want to hear your thoughts on the episode. Where can we find you, James?
James Maple. You can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Terrell James Maple, all one word.
And you can find me at BrandonHanna07 at Twitter and Instagram. Thanks again for joining us, and we will see you next time.
Peace.
Our founder, Keven Undergaro, and me, Maria Menounos, would like to thank you for tuning in to AfterBuzz TV. Remember, we're not just the first, we're the biggest in the world, and we're the only destination for all your favorite TV shows. Whatever you crave, we've got it. So go to AfterBuzzTV.com and check out our lineup. Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.